Welcome to this podcast, Holistic Creators, where we share our unique and universal stories about shaping the future for the 4 Ps: people, planet, purpose, and profit. My name is Swanette. I'm a mental coach and your host of this show. My intention for this show is to inspire you on your path to a holistic future. So welcome. Hello, and welcome to my podcast, Holistic Creators. My name is Swanette, and I'm your host. Today, my guest is Marie Balkanski. Welcome to my show.
Thanks for having me. Hi, Swanette.
So I already had the opportunity to read a little bit about you and what you're doing. And this is really amazing hearing about and reading about your story. And one thing that was really interesting for me was that the past doesn't need to define the future. So this is really something I would like to understand more about and give my audience also the inspiration about your story. Tell me a little bit how this all started up when you were born here, and like what has been struggles and situations, challenges you have been in as a child.
Oh yeah, I mean, it definitely started way before my birth, right? It started when I decided to come into this physical body, because we are all very much more than this physical body. So, but I would say that I definitely chose to be born to a family that was pretty dysfunctional. In order to not spend too much time in the very beginning, I would say that, well, my parents split up when I was just 3 years old. And after that, life was pretty chaotic in regards to being with my mom primarily, who had a lot of issues with her own, past, her own past, which led her to using drugs. So she got very heavy with using substances. And, me and my sister just started kind of wandering around essentially at the age of I would say from 8 years old onwards. I was pretty much living from house to house, bouncing around, just not really knowing where my next meal was going to come from, what clothes I was going to wear. And my mom was pretty just completely lost. She would come around once in a while. And the thing is, back then we didn't have cell phones like we have now. So it was very easy to lose contact with her at points unless she knew where I was. So then she would just show up and whatnot. So at that time I was living about 11 years old. I was living with a family, not a family, actually, this woman, who, I kind of grown pretty close with them. And they took me on a family trip and to visit her family. And that is when my mom could not find me and basically called a missing report on me. And the police found me. I was just on the beach having a great time. And they recognized my picture, I guess. And they're like, "Are you this person, Marie Balkanski?" I was like, "Yes." And they immediately said that my mom put a missing report on me. And I just started crying. I was in disbelief. I had a sense of stability for the first time, even if it was for a short 6 months. I had a sense of stability with someone. And that's when I went into foster care, because they're like, okay, there's this 11-year-old child that really doesn't want to go back home to mom. What's going on? What's wrong? And so they started investigating. That's when social services got involved, of course, and started investigating. And I was in foster care. That was a very pivotal moment in my life, because that was the most fun actually I've ever had as a child, because I had complete freedom to not worry about where I'm going to get my meal, where I'm going to get my clothes, or anything, like that. I could just be a kid. And that lasted for a couple of years. I would say about 2-3 years, about almost 3 years I was in foster care. And then my father, who was very absent in my life at the time, helped me out of foster care. However, once he got me out, that just led me into another chaotic, dysfunctional home where I was moving around again. And by the age of 16, because I was moving around, I dropped out of high school. My father was very absent and just not involved. He really just didn't know how to be a father. And that allowed me to become emancipated at 16. So at 16 years old, I was pretty much on my own. I was working, as a cashier, lived in my own apartment, which I got with a boyfriend at the time. And I dropped out of high school. And that is the moment, like, I always knew I wanted more. But of course I'm struggling financially. I eventually got my GED at 19. And, I had this little voice in the back of my mind that was just like, you can do better. You can do better. You can have more. You can do more. You are the creator. Like, I realized that I could create my environment just simply by getting my GED. I was like, holy crap, like, I got my GED. And I decided to go to college. College was in itself was something that I believed I could never do. Like, there were multiple parts that were created from my past that were telling me these things, that you are not capable of doing this because, hello, none of your family went to college. You're a high school dropout. You're not good enough. You're not this. Like, I had this voice, which I wasn't even aware of, that just kept on like beating me down. But then there was this other little voice that was like, no, 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 I have a gut feeling that I can do this. I can do this. So I ended up going to college and did pretty well in school, studied a lot. And I never thought that I could be a doctor, even though I always wanted to. I was like, no, 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 no. 2 years is plenty of school. And I was getting the grades. So I was like, okay, maybe, just maybe. And I'll never forget the counselor that actually was trying to convince me to change my degree after I definitively decided that I'm going to do pre-med. And that actually made me very angry. I was like, I'm going to prove him. I'm going to do it. And so it's like I had multiple parts in me that's like, no, I'm going to prove him wrong. No, you can't do this. And, I was in conflict with myself, but still that voice was like, there's something in me that just felt like, I can do it. And so I did end up getting into med school, and I did end up passing, and I graduated. And once, I completed all that, I still had this feeling of like, I'm not worthy. Like, I'm a fraud, even after med school. Like, it's crazy now. Every time I talk about my story, like, you look back and you're like, you go through all these experiences, you get all the degrees, you have I wrote a memoir about this, and, I conquered everything that I achieved, but I still had that voice that said, you are not good enough. You're a fraud, even after being considered that a doctor. So that's what really delved me into like helping myself. Like my medical books were not telling me what is wrong with me, like why I feel this way. I didn't understand how my past could be so ingrained. And I started meditating, and, I did traditional therapy, and I meditation was one of the things that really, really profoundly helped me. And that was something that came out of traditional therapy, because the therapist was the one like, hey, there's this thing called meditation. I was like, wow. And so when when I started meditating, I just, I experienced this peace, this calmness, it just felt so right. But I still had these voices in my head, right? This critical mind that was just so negative, so loud. And I heard about hypnotherapy. And that was the huge pivotal moment in my life when I started doing hypnotherapy and understanding what it was, and really working on those core beliefs created from my childhood, because hypnotherapy works on the subconscious mind. And for me, it was just like meditation. It was like deep, 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 deep meditation was hypnotherapy, in order to reprogram all of these beliefs that I had about myself, which were that I'm not worthy, I'm alone, I'm not good enough, I'm a fraud. And that's what brought me here today, is like, I learned a kind of a more systematic approach of healing these inner layers of your subconscious mind that you're holding about yourself, that are created from your childhood. This I call it the self-sabotaging. And so in a nutshell, that's pretty much like how I got here.
Yeah, wow. Thank you for sharing this. And I can understand a lot of people have these limiting beliefs. Some of them are very obvious. And you said, okay, you have the feeling, I'm not good enough, I'm a fraud. Yeah, I never can do that. And we are so programmed by our education, by our parents, by other people that influence us. and we start believing this about ourselves, even if it is not true. No? We make this up in our mind, and then in our subconsciousness, it is stored. And we will always have situations where we prove ourselves that this is true. And one thing is, okay, becoming aware. What are the beliefs I think about myself, about the world, about relationships, money, whatever it is? And then, okay, they are there. And what can we do with that?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say becoming very aware of like how we are conditioned and slowly shedding those layers. Because, it wasn't just my parents. It was, well, hello, there's a generational thing there, right? It was my parents' parents and their parents. Like, we're trickling down these belief patterns that are not really ours. These are not our truths. This is not who we are. And socially, we're doing that too. My teachers, therapists, doctors, like, it doesn't matter, like, any authority figure that had authority over me as a child was just oppressing upon these beliefs that were not really authentically who I am. And that was the biggest struggle. And even till today, like, it's just becoming aware of how I am being conditioned or being influenced by even social media or the news or whatnot, and constantly just being aware of that so that I can kind of shed my layers and say, no, this is who I am authentically. This is what I like. This is what I enjoy. And there's, it doesn't matter. Like, even, pursuing my career was a bit, out of the norm, right? So, like, here I am, as a medical doctor, like, going into traditional medicine, and people are looking at me like, wanting to open my practice and do this whole different thing. And they're like, what is wrong with you? And finding that norm of like, what is wrong with you? Like, something is wrong with me just because I'm following something that feels like authentically right for me. Like, it just felt good. Like, I am very much into the holistic healing and helping people empower themselves. And, I believe that we have been socially conformed even by the traditional way that we practice medicine, and that, that even doctors need to be a bit open to like these alternative holistic ways, or just be knowledgeable about them. Like, we're not educated about that. Like, it blows my mind. We're not even educated about like nutrition, which is so vitally important, for someone's well-being. But, training for doctors is very, very little when it comes to nutrition. And, I think that we as a human race just need to be very cognizant about like what all that we don't know, really, and be open to what we could know, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I totally get what you're saying. So from my own history, I'm educated in medicine, and I'm an engineer in environmental technology as well. And so what I sometimes hear is also like, you're working now as a mindset coach. What is wrong with you? You have a degree.
yeah, right.
Yeah. But figuring out, these are like pieces of a puzzle that is all about life. And seeing it from different perspectives, from science and from more like the spiritual world, it totally makes sense. Yeah. And in your history as well, now you're coming from a scientific background, but you're open up also to understanding more beyond, and having this holistic approach. You have to open your mind. You have to understand that all that we experience right now here in the so-called reality is like kind of a fiction we do have about our reality. Yeah. So we are creating a kind of a picture of how we live in this world. And if you ask other people, they totally have a different reality, and even they can be in the same moment with you. They are not in the same reality. They aren't. So I think this is really important to see that being on the one hand a scientist, but on the other hand also open to new approaches, looking beyond, is very important in this time where we are out of this routines and constant predicting how the future can be, because we are still in this situation of this pandemic, and everything is falling apart. So we are kind of in a really chaotic situation right now. So the old ways are not working anymore. So I think
Yeah.
understanding this, it is more important to see how you can look beyond and integrate all your skills and knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah, I love what you said. You know, I mean, especially considering your background, that you've been especially engineering, like being able to just kind of put all the pieces together and understand how something works. And, you know, for me, learning about medicine was like, there's a lot of missing pieces here. Like there's so many missing pieces. And one of the things that just like mind boggled me throughout my training was that, you know, we have all these diseases and conditions called idiopathic, you know, and what idiopathic means, basically, those that are listening don't know, it means just we don't have the answer. We don't know where it comes from. It's an idiopathic condition. And there's so many conditions that are lumped under this idiopathic diagnosis. And that's because, like, you know, when I started learning about this holistic approach or metaphysical and spiritual, like that was the answer. Like it is this energy source that we're not looking at. It is the stress. It is the emotions. It's the energy that we feel that we cannot really fully explain it. And it just, and I love that we're living in a time where it's like, where now we have such wonderful technology and advancements, like, you know, to think that we have these telescopes that are able to see so far in the cosmos that we're exploring. And, you know, we didn't have this before. And now that we have this technology that allows us to see further on, that, you know, we're coming to a realization that we can't answer everything, and that there has to be something else that we cannot perceive in our reality because of our limited perceptions of this physical body, right? Like, it's like there's so much more that we can feel and sense that's picking up more beyond this physical realm, right? So it's like walking in the room and being like, oh, you know, did something bad happen or what happened? Or like just immediately knowing that that something was said or picking up, you know, intuitively, right? You're into your intuition and picking up from other people. That is unexplainable. I mean, quantum physics is even showing that this is the unexplainable, like becoming the observer. What is consciousness? What is this energy? Are we creating it? Is it a creation that is coming through us? And, you know, and this is the one realm that has given me the answer that just feels undoubtedly correct. Like undoubtedly, okay, we're getting closer to that. You know, even in when people out there do have like near death experience or out of body experience and things like that, where we're able to connect with this unseen realm, this non-physical realm. And, you know, I hope that more people are much more, you know, open to this as we continue to grow, because it is a way of helping and healing ourselves in this physical experience of believing in that.
Yeah. So what do you think about this idea that you first have to start kind of clearing yourself, understanding about yourself, and then if you feel like you are really connected to yourself, then you can do or make the impact for the world, like it is from inside out, like getting rid of your blocking beliefs, understanding about the emotions that are trapped in your body, what is your programming, and really, you know, clearing this out, reframing it, rewriting your story, all this kind of stuff, and then kind of becoming ready to bring this out in the world to do, to make the transformation we really need right now in this time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why we're all here, you know, collectively creating a new reality collectively. You know, it's if you look around you right now, everything is a collective creation. You know, the building you're in is a collective creation. The phone that you have in your hand may be a collective creation. And we want to collectively create a reality that is more harmonious and peaceful. And 100% agree with you. For us to be able to do that, we have to start with ourselves first, and to be able to allow that to transpire out. And I see ourselves, in order to create a metaphor, like a computer. It is like exactly like a computer. We're a very advanced type of computer with all of these neurons and connections within our body. And, you know, I explained that the monitor is like our thinking mind, our conscious mind. We have all these thoughts. and we can clearly see them. Like, this is the part of the brain that most people are very much engaging in their day-to-day activities with. They're listening to that thinking mind, and they're also thinking that it's the more powerful aspect of us because it's so loud, right? That voice is so loud. But there's another part of the computer, which is called the hard drive. And the hard drive it's not seen very clearly, but it is a big chunk of the processing. It holds all the memory. It holds all the data. And that is like our subconscious mind. And so we have the hard drive, which is our subconscious, the monitor, which is our thinking mind, our conscious mind. And then we also have the keyboard. The keyboard is like events around us. And it's like relationships, because there are people coming up to our keyboard, typing in and hitting at our keyboard and creating these beliefs and ideas or stories, which we're programming into our hard drive. And, this is not really who we are, but this is all being programmed into us. And then we have another component of the computer now, which is called the World Wide Web. And when all the connections within the computer are very clear and working optimally, we're able to connect to this more divine source of World Wide Web, where we can connect with our higher self, our inner knowing, our intuition. And so what happens, though, is programming can cloud that. It can screw it all up, right? It can take us in a different direction. We can have a lot of bugs in our system. So being aware and understanding that the programming that is being held within our hard drive is created from events and experiences. We have to be able to clear those, to look at them, to reframe how we view it, to understand that that is not us, right? So my past of feeling that I am not worthy or not good enough was not my truth. My mere existence here says I am far worthy. I have a purpose. I am here. My pure existence is proof of that. And so being able to see the experiences differently, the story differently. So for me, and that took some back and forth changing of pathways, because my wires in my computer were always seeing it, working at it in one direction. And so I needed someone to come to me, by either listening to other healers or going to a practitioner or a facilitator to kind of give me new wires, new pathways of seeing my situation, giving me new resources so that I can eliminate those beliefs. So once I was able to reflect that it wasn't my mom that abandoned me, my mom actually felt abandoned herself, from her past. And so she was just repeating a pattern that she was shown from her mother, and that abandonment was really abandoning of herself. And I just learned that by withdrawing from my society, from withdrawing from myself, I basically was abandoning myself. Anytime I almost doubted myself. And so I had to kind of recognize that those beliefs were not mine by seeing them differently. And that is me now learning how to program my own computer, right? And telling myself, nurturing that positive voice within me to allow it to, to speak, to help me clear those beliefs. Because, I can't, if I'm here telling you my story, and I've had this happen before where, I tell my story and then I've had clients cry in front of me, and I'm so sorry you went through that. And I'm like, and I'm smiling. I'm like, no, that is what, I'm good. I'm good. Obviously I'm triggering something for them. I'm making them feel something about themselves and, reminding them of something within themselves. And so that's why they're there. But I have been able to help and heal myself. That's why I'm not sitting there crying, because when I talk about my story, even from this perspective, it's very hard for me to get emotional about it because I see my story very differently because of the reprogramming, and that is becoming a healed healer to be able to help others. You can't heal others unless you're healed yourself fully to that depth. I would say you can help people for sure, but to truly help people heal, you would have to be healed yourself to be able to get them to that depth of the place that you have experienced and been, to be able to guide and pace them into that place. Yeah. So I hope that answers.
Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely agree with what you're saying. And I think what is also very important is what you just mentioned, that you can see in the ancestral line that there is a kind of a pattern or this inherited belief that are given from one generation to the other, and that it is very important to have a look also into that, because, like, for example, this drug addiction, alcoholism, also aggression or something, that is often given over from one generation to another, and like, if you want to heal yourself, you have to become aware of that. And of course, if you want to heal people, you really have to not only heal yourself, but you really need to heal also your story you have and the story the family has.
Yeah, absolutely. You're ending the pattern that is the pattern that is replicating through the line, and becoming aware of that pattern and ending it. And that is one of the things that, people, my clients, after they're going through the process, will be like, wow, like, I can't believe how this is. I am repeating what mom, or I am repeating this person, and that pattern that they weren't even aware that they were repeating. That awareness alone is part of the healing. Just becoming aware of that, you're like, the awareness of it is like, okay, now I can stop it. Because you can't fix something or change it if you're not aware that it's even there. And that's a beautiful process of being aware of that.
Yeah, so the first step is really getting the awareness, which means bringing the information from your subconscious mind into your conscious mind, so that you can start to transform it. So what would be the next step? Like, now that I'm aware, what can I do? For example, like getting more clarity or start already healing. So what would be the next step?
Yeah. So it would depend on the story, right? It would depend on what the story was that we told ourselves and how we perceive that story. And then we would have to change that story and what we tell ourselves. And sometimes, one way of doing that I like to bring in is parts work. So we have parts that that are holding that story from our childhood. It is our ego self that is holding that story. And that part sees it this way, but they really have an intention behind it. They basically are doing this, they're repeating this story to themselves because they think that it's getting them something. They think that it's going to, give them peace or give them happiness or give them whatever. And so we would have to tell it what it is, how to do its job better, in a sense that, my withdrawal or my doubt, in the end was maybe holding me back from those experiences and telling me that I'm not good enough because it wanted to protect me, as an example. It wanted to protect me because it didn't want me to fail and it didn't want me to hurt. And it didn't when you really look at a part of you that is repeating it, you'll see that it really wants something that's good, in a sense. It wants something that is good for you. It doesn't want you to hurt. It doesn't want you to be rejected. It doesn't want you to feel alone. So we have to recognize that part, which is holding the story, and then help it with another part of us. And so, if we do not have a part that can help us, that's when I highly encourage they go to someone like you, like myself, where they're able to get resources on how to help the other part that will tell it what it needs, that help give it what it needs. And that's the reparenting. We learn how to reparent parts of us. And so an example would be like, my higher self has been developed and understood as I connected to it, and also, learn to trust it, may come through as a part to be able to help this part to give it what it needs. But what it needs is not, that's the possible rejection. So it's kind of like someone telling you, oh, you're wonderful, you're great, you're beautiful, you're awesome. And then, someone may reply back being like, what's wrong with you? No, I'm not. Right? We reject it. We're rejecting that suggestion because it's just not, we're not believing it. We need something in order to fully believe it. And that's called the critical factor. The critical factor is rejecting that idea. And so that's why I love hypnosis, because it kind of helps push that critical factor away, because conscious mind the critical factor is in our conscious mind. And so when we ask that part, like, what is it that you need in order to believe this? What is it that we will see that the part will tell us, it will tell us what it needs and how how we need to see the story. And so we have to use that in order to play with it, to be able to meet it where it's at, to help shift it more and more to a new story, a new way of seeing it. Of course, I'm very broad right here. So, for me, I needed to see the pattern as part of a way of understanding so that I could see it differently, to recognize that it wasn't me, that, that mom is abandoned. That's a new way of seeing it. It was her mom that abandoned her, that made her feel abandoned, and that then she abandoned me. And so I had to really reflect back generationally to see a different story, to now recognize that it's not me. So I don't know what other people have for, applicable steps, what the story that they're telling themselves, but I would encourage that, really ask, is this your truth? Is this a truth? And if we feel that sensation of like, ugh, just, feeling of not goodness, then I'm going to say it's highly likely it's not your truth. Our true essence of who we are is good. It is this light, this love. It is compassion. It is, it's all these things that make us feel balanced and just good. So I hope I answered that question though.
Yes, so I'm curious to hear a little bit more about this moment of your transformation. You said you went into meditation and hypnosis and started like healing yourself. Give us a little more details, like how this phase was for you, what came up for you.
Yeah. So, in meditation, it was just getting even a second. It was getting a second of that peace, of that quietness, of that stillness that just allowed that thinking mind first, number one, to quiet and to kind of become the observer is what I like to say. I became the observer. I became the witness of myself, because to be able to help ourselves, what do we do, right? Most of us through our childhood, we have been taught to push down, to suppress, to ignore the emotions. And we do have to allow that to come forward, but not be fully sucked into it where we react, and becoming the reactor of that emotion may not help us in healing that. We have to allow that emotion to come forward, to create space. And so part of that for me was becoming the observer, to allow my emotions to come up to the surface, to even create space to say, oh, here you are, you're hurt. Oh, here you are, you're sad. Oh, here you are, you feel abandoned. And that was a very challenging transition for me, because it didn't feel good. It did not feel good to be able to feel all that, because I've suppressed it for so long. I pushed down on those emotions. It's like taking a big balloon full of air and pushing it down. It was a lot of work for most of my life, holding it down. And that's why there are moments in life that I would just pop, I would explode. I would cry over like the most simplest things. And I felt out of control of my emotions, right? I felt like they controlled me. And that's because I didn't understand them. So my meditation allowed me to sit with them, to create space, to begin to open my heart. And, meditation, hypnosis was a huge part of just kind of giving me the guidance on allowing me to open the heart. And then what do I do with this, right? What do I do with this emotions? Well, number one, crying is a form of release, allowing myself to cry, allowing myself to express, allowing myself to say, to really authentically express how I feel was a release of that emotion that was being held in me energetically. And, that was the therapy that that then, they gave me permission basically that this is okay. This is normal. You can express it. You can let it out. You can scream. You can cry. You can say everything you feel about your mom, your dad, and everything. And so that was part of the letting go process. And then the transformation of that energy, came with techniques of understanding how to, number one, understand, to find commonality within, well, it was my dad, my mom, were they evil in any way? No. Were they just doing the best they could with their resources? Yeah, because honestly, when I look back to their history, I'm like, they really didn't have great resources to be able to guide them on how to be a father, how to be a mother, how to, do it. They didn't. And so, that was the transformation, understanding that they were doing the best that they can do so that I can forgive, so that I can forgive and let go. And man, I thought that I forgave, consciously. Yeah, I did. But there are these emotions subconsciously that didn't forgive, these parts of me that were held in there that didn't really forgive. And so from that place of being my inner child, from that place of being this little me, I could forgive and understand now that I understood. And so that was the whole healing for me personally. And yes, I needed guidance. Like I believe, any healer that goes to this depth, when we are so much in that emotion, that's a challenge. It's like being in a jar, right? And not able to see your label. So you're so in that jar so much that you're just unable to view what's going on. And you need someone on the outside that is a bit of a neutral sense and understanding the process to kind of coach and guide you, to read the label to you, to help bounce back what it is coming from you so that you can be able to learn how to pull yourself out of that jar and become an observer of your emotions and look at it with curiosity so that then you can, eventually get to a point where you're able to help yourself. And that's where I am now, where I'm able to go into a nice, comfortable, deep meditation and literally do parts work with myself and kind of guide myself. And when I'm having something in course major that's coming up that I can't, I'm not shy to not reach out for help. I'm human. I never deny that I am human, that I am going through a human experience still. And that because of that, I need to be able to make sure that I'm helping myself through any struggles and difficulties, just like the pandemic, I'm going through this too, and like dealing with the uncertainty and so I will reach out to people in order to help me, that maybe could help me reflect what I'm experiencing.
Yeah, so I totally agree also with that this is a process not only for normal people, so to say, but it is a process we are all in. Like even we as healers, we are still continuing going deeper and deeper in our own process. And me too, I have a coach as well. I have someone who's helping me with my past lives, going deeper into the Akashic records. I really need this as well for myself. And what I think is also important, what you said, there are some emotions that come up, and perhaps we are aware of that because we are very used to see these emotions in other, like you're exploding, perhaps being feeling the emotion of aggression or whatever it is, but then looking what is below, like perhaps there is scarcity or there is this feeling of being abandoned, and going deeper. What is this feeling of not being loved, and going deeper and deeper. So really to understand, what are all these layers of emotions that are stored inside of me, and I know now how can I let them out and not being overwhelmed by them. It is very helpful to have someone at the side who can lead the process and give a safe space so that these emotions can come up and not being overwhelming.
It's I mean, I always encourage people, on my podcast and anybody that I meet, like, I'm just like, even my clients, I'm like, hey, if this doesn't align with you, that's completely fine. It's not my journey. Like, this is your journey. I'm empowering you to feel and choose what feels right for you in your path, however that needs to look. It may not be hypnotherapy, it may not be this realm of approach, or and that's fine. Like for me, how I see healing is like the bicycle wheel, right? Where we have a lot of spokes heading to one center. Because when you do look at the center of all of healing, there's this love, there's this light, there's this forgiveness, compassion, and just oneness, as the universal one. And every modality is kind of getting to that place. We just, we have to find the one that just feels right for us to be able to follow and choose. I love exploring all different modalities. Just so, number one, I'm aware and I'm learning and healing myself too. Like, sound therapy, I've experimented with, I've done the past lives too. I just recently did a life between lives regression, and that was fantastic. And I'm just learning about like who I am. I just had this like profound epiphany of one of my past lives the other day, actually. In my past life, I was an alcoholic. I was actually an alcoholic myself. And, and this is my most recent past life. And so this is a funny fact, but, we choose our bodies, right? And I learned that within my life between lives experience that I chose this body. And it's so funny. I have an enzyme deficiency. It is a common in Asians that they have an enzyme deficiency, and I can't process alcohol. So I cannot drink. Period. Like, I don't even want to drink, because the minute I even have like one drink, I am like have a hangover and vomiting. And I'm thinking about my past lives, and I'm like, wow. I must have chose a body to make sure that I learned my lesson, my karmic lesson that I needed to learn from my last past life. And like, look at my mother. I chose my mother. Like, there's no doubt that I chose my mother. And, I'm here to have learned because of what I did in my past lives. So it's just funny. Like, the more you learn about yourself through these different modalities or these different things, like even ayahuasca or journeying, or, there's so much. And, it's really what feels right for you, I would say.
Yeah, so absolutely. What are typical stories or challenges or problems people come to you with?
Oh, so I would say the majority of people are coming to me because they're lost. They're very lost. They feel empty, emotionally don't know what, like, they're just not sure like where they are. They're feeling unsatisfied with like, their career, their relationship. There's just like a sense of emptiness. I would say most people are feeling lost with everything. That's one part. Other part is definitely someone that is, their emotions are kind of in controlling them, and they're not sure how to control the emotions, what they are. And so I tend to get those two types of people that, that are either feeling lost, like roaming through life, feel like it's just automatic. There's no sense of purpose and passion and drive within their life. And then the other person that's just very overwhelmed by their emotions and feel like their emotions are controlling them. So those are definitely my specialties. I mean, I'm definitely huge with emotions and helping people understand where it's coming from. The self-sabotaging loop is what I like to call it, of where that root creation came from, and doing that while they're in a hypnotic, nice, into that trance place, because there's really, profound transformations that are able to occur within that space. That space is of meditation and hypnosis is you're in a brainwave of theta that is very much what we experience as a child. And there's an open, that's all hypnosis is just that you're more open to suggestions, to take in information. And we are like brainwaves in theta, which is like a learning open state. So there's like huge shifts that can take place in that state. So I always love to bring people there to be able to help them make those changes and teach them how to do it. Because, all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So it's like, if I can teach you how to do these modalities, then you can be able to help yourself. I kind of see myself like a crisis interventionalist. Like, I'm the big gun. Like, I really get like get the big stuff moving, and, you know, for you to do the work still, even when you're home though. And, you know, I'm here of support, you know, and that's why I have a podcast that's all about just like your rapid realizations of how to transform with techniques, how to do this work on your own, because I truly believe we are our own healers in regards to ourself. We have divine guidance. We have our guides around us. We have all this at our use. We have to call upon them, right, to be able to help us transform. And so we are healing from within. And that's, you know, we all have the power to do that.
Yeah, I think this is also very important to understand, that we have the power, we have the ability to create our lives and do the transformation for ourselves. And so it's more like you're the catalyst to start this and help them at the beginning, but then also supporting through the process with different kind of modalities or tools. But it is about them, their responsibility to go on with the process and doing their own work as well. It's not like coming to you, getting the pill, and everything is fine.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I'm launching actually just in 7 days on February 14th, a membership program that just purely talks about that is centered around self-hypnosis, someone learning how to get into these states so that they can, and then learning more of like parts work and these modalities on how to help and heal themselves, to understand their minds at the, you know, fundamental level of what makes up who you are, so that you can, because the fundamentals are pretty much are the same. You know, we are all human. So the programming process or outline is very much similar, you know. And then for those big, like kind of individual stories that we're struggling to shift, you know, and then that's when I would jump in as a supplement if needed. So you know, one of the things that I definitely wanted to do is create a program that is accessible for those that want to put in and learn on their own self to do the work.
So if people are now interested, they can meet you like digitally or only in person. I'm not sure. You can do hypnosis for everybody.
Yeah,
or people
actually, yeah. All hypnosis is self-hypnosis. So I do remote. Yeah, I do remote sessions. You could do it remotely. You could do it live. I mean, I do both options because I do still have my office. So, but, you know, I do have a lot of clients that are remotely, and, you know, and then I have my online program, which is kind of like a self-study with some guidance, with some guidance. And, you know, I have my podcast as a way of being able to educate, just as you have, in order to help educate people on some of the techniques and modalities. So yeah, people can reach me any of those ways. Just like you're seeing me here, I can definitely see someone. You know, all I need to do is just be able to see you, and I can pick up on subconscious cues. You know, we can pick up on things. You know, this is I love the ability to reach people internationally now. It's just amazing. Like you, you know, like we're having this conversation from different continents. It's great. So yeah, I can do both.
Okay. What is the name of your podcast?
It's Rapid Realization Podcast. My company is Rapid Realization. So people can just type in Rapid Realization. You'll find me, rapidrealization.com, Rapid Realization podcast is the podcast name, and that's rapidrealizationpodcast.com. And it's on all major platforms. So it's just like yours is, which I've listened to your interviews and stuff. It's fantastic work. So congrats.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I will put in the links to your podcast, to your website, also to your social media down in the description, so that it is very easy for people to just click there and find you very easily.
Thank you. Thank
you. So last but not least, are there any tips you would give the audience, like quick information?
Quick information. You know, so I will give you a link because, you know, this is something that popped in my mind that I completely forgot I do have. if anybody is inspired by my story, that is something that is my mission. My mission is to inspire as many as I can. And I did write and was published in an anthology called Medicine Woman. And I would love to give that chapter away for free if anybody wants to read it. So I can give you the link for that to access. So you can just read about it, just to share with you, like, you're not alone. You're not alone. And, the more that you become aware of what's going on, the more you can help and heal yourself. So I would love to share that with you and any of the listeners that want access to it for free.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, I really appreciate that you have been my guest today. And this was such a wonderful conversation with you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening or watching my podcast, Holistic Creators. If you want to know more about how I can help and support you, have a look at my website, spiritualchangemaker.com. You can also join my Facebook group, Spiritual Changemakers Community. Stay tuned for the next episode by subscribing to this channel. And you also can check the previous episodes